cetera.
What conclusions did you draw from your review?
I concluded that Mr. Depp suffered lost earnings of approximately $40 million.
How did you reach that conclusion?
Well, there are really two main components to that. The first relates to the loss of the role of Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates 6 film. So the loss related to the loss of that role in that franchise picture. It was $22.5 million based on testimony provided by Mr. Jack Wiggum. In addition, we looked at, yes?
Did you do anything else with respect to Pirates 6?
Well, we also calculated the net earnings that Mr. Depp would have received from that.
Okay. And what did you base your analysis of Pirates 6 on?
Based on the testimony of Mr. Jack Wiggum.
Okay. What else did you do with respect to the lost earning analysis that you did?
Well, the other main component to this is taking a look at all the other roles, the non-franchise films. So those films, studio films, independent films, and endorsements that Mr. Depp realizes and enjoys. So in connection with that, we looked at his bookings for the year 2017. And by bookings, I mean instances where Mr. Depp is hired for a project. And he receives that first money related to that project in 2017. So, in other words, you've got a deal, and cash has showed up, so it's real. So we looked at his 2017 bookings, and we calculated for that year, for that period, his bookings were about $17.5 million. The main components of that, Mr. Wiggum testified to. We then looked at the period of time following the op-ed of December 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020. So if annual earnings was $17.5 million, in what is known as a typical year, a reasonable base year, at that rate, what would we have expected Mr. Depp to have earned from that period of October 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020? And we then compared that to his bookings, his actual bookings for that period of time.
Why did you use 2017 as a typical base year?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, Mr. Wiggum testified that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. And it's also the most recent clean year that was experienced. In 2018, you had the publication of the op-ed. That didn't happen in 2017.
Okay. Did you do anything, did you prepare anything to assist the jury with respect to the analysis that you performed?
We did prepare a chart, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
All right. Yes, sir. Good.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I think this is Plaintiff Exhibit 1240. I'm going to, I'm not going to move it into evidence. I'm simply just going to use it, with your permission, and publish it to the jury so that the witness can explain it.
Any objection to demonstrative 1240? All right, demonstrative. Well, do you have electronic copy of it? Okay, that's fine.
We do. Okay. Who did this chart?
I, in combination with people working under my direction from my firm.
All right. Can you explain to the jury what you've done here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, as we discussed previously, Mr. Depp lost the role in Pirates 6, and the effect of that was lost earnings of $22.5 million based on Mr. Wiggum's testimony. And then what we've shown here is the 10% agent commission. That
so why did you deduct 10%?
Because that's the rate for Mr. Depp's agent. That's what his agent receives out of Mr. Depp's earnings in connection with setting up a project for Mr. Depp. So we deduct that 10%, which comes to $2,250,000, just 10% of $22.5 million. And the net effect of that, the amount that Mr. Depp would have received after deducting that fee, would have been $20,250,000. And that's the first component of this.
All right. What did you do in terms of the analysis of lost bookings for non-franchise films?
Okay, so that's the next section of the chart. And as I mentioned before, his 2017 bookings were about $17.5 million. So that rate of earnings over the period from mid-December through the end of October 2020, or mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020, would come to about $32.8, $32.9 million. We then compared that to actual bookings during that period of time, of mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020. That amount was $10,586,000. We deducted those bookings, the actual amounts, from what we would have expected to arrive at his lost bookings for non-franchise activity, and that comes to about $22.3 million. And once again, we've deducted the 10% agent's commission. So the net effect, the lost earnings to Mr. Depp after that agent's fee for non-pirate films comes to about $20 million.
What does the figure at the bottom corner of the chart, the $40,318,237, what does that represent?
Well, that's your grand total. That's the sum of those two components for total lost earnings of $40.3 million.
No further questions, Sean.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Spindler.
Good morning.
So this lawsuit isn't the first time you've worked with Johnny Depp, is it?
It is not.
You've worked with him in a lawsuit that he had in the past with his old law firm, correct?
Yes, just a little bit of work, yes.
And so in this second go-round as a paid expert for Mr. Depp, you're making $550 an hour is what he's paying you? Is that right?
That's the amount that my firm bills. I do not receive that.
Now, the subject matter of your opinion testimony in this case is the economic damages that Mr. Depp has allegedly suffered as a result of Ms. Heard's December 8, 2018 op-ed, correct?
Correct, yes.
And this is the first case in which you've testified as an expert relating to economic damages claimed by an actor, correct?
First time I've testified to, but I've done that work before.
And you understand that this case is about only whether Ms. Heard's December 18, 2018 op-ed constitutes defamation of Mr. Depp, correct?
That's my understanding.
And you understand that this case isn't about anything else Ms. Heard has ever said or done, correct?
I believe that's correct.
And to be clear, you are testifying only as to alleged damages, right?
Correct.
So you are not offering any opinion or any testimony on whether those specific damages that you just discussed were caused by the op-ed, correct?
That's correct.
And you're assuming for the purposes of your report that the damages that you're testifying about were caused by Amber's op-ed, correct?
Yes.
So you're therefore not looking into whether anything else that's happened with Mr. Depp's life or career could have caused him economic damages, correct?
I believe that's generally correct, yes.
So you're not looking at whether the article published in the UK in June 2018 calling Mr. Depp a wife beater caused him the damages, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the lawsuit that he brought in the UK against the publisher of that article caused him those damages, right?
Correct.
You're not looking at any of the evidence that came out in that lawsuit about alleged instances of abuse against Amber, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the consequences of Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol use have caused him the damages you're discussing, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the worsening performance at the box office of Mr. Depp's movies over time has caused him the damages that you're testifying about, correct?
Correct. And I'm not acknowledging any of this being accurate. I'm just saying that that wasn't part of my calculations.
Sure, I understand. I just want to make clear what you didn't look at, what you're not opining on. And so to round that out, you're not considering even the impact of Amber obtaining a restraining order in May 2016 and whether that may have caused him damages. That's not part of your opinion, correct?
Well, since we were taking a look at lost bookings using 2017 as a base year, any activity that preceded that would have been baked into those calculations that way.
And we'll get to those calculations in a minute because I'm going to put up the chart that you put in your expert report. But first I want to talk about Pirate 6 because that's basically the two components of your damages is Pirate 6 and then this non-franchise lost bookings, right?
Correct.
So for Pirate 6 specifically, you assume that he would have made $22.5 million on Pirate 6, right?
Correct.
And you took Jack Wiggum's word for it in making that assumption, correct?
I based it on his testimony, yes.
Now, you never saw a contract that Mr. Depp had for Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
Because no contract exists, to your knowledge, correct?
So far as I know, I've not seen one.
And you didn't take into consideration Jack Wiggum's testimony that Disney was non-committal about Mr. Depp being in Pirate 6 even before the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't take into consideration the press articles that came out prior to the op-ed that suggested that Disney had made a decision not to cast Mr. Depp in Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea whether Pirate 6 will ever be made, right?
I wouldn't know that.
And you have no idea if Disney has decided one way or the other whether Mr. Depp would be in it or whether they'd offer him a role in it if it is ever made, correct?
Well, my understanding is that they made a public statement that he would not.
Okay. And you have, if Disney decided that he wouldn't be in it, you have no idea when they decided that, correct?
I know that there was a public announcement subsequent to the publication of the op-ed.
What public announcement are you talking about?
I believe there was an interview of Mr. Bailey that was published several days after.
Oh, okay. Well, that interview of Mr. Bailey didn't say that he wasn't going to be in it. In fact, have you looked at the article that the jury saw the headline for yesterday, dated November 5th, 2020, about Mr. Depp potentially not being in Pirate 6? Have you looked at that article? I assume not.
No.
Okay. And you didn't take into account Mr. Depp's statement that he wouldn't do Pirate 6 for $300 million and a million alpacas, correct?
That sounded like hyperbole to me. I didn't take that very seriously. It
Okay.
sounded like somebody who was a bit hurt or in pain
So-
as a result of the loss of the role.
So if Mr. Depp didn't lose a role in Pirate 6 because of the op-ed, but he lost it for other reasons, then your damages opinion relating to Pirate 6 would drop to $0, correct?
I believe that's correct. If it's not lost for that reason, if it's lost for some other independent reason, then I think that would need to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Now let's shift gears and talk about the non-franchise earnings for a moment. You claim this number is about $21 million, right? Roughly.
20.
We'll pull it up. Well, actually, we'll look at the chart here. $20 million, about $20 million after agent fees.
Correct.
Right? Okay. And to reach that number, you looked at what his historical earnings records showed, right?
Correct.
And you got that information from Ed White's office?
Yes.
And you assumed that the information you got from Ed White's office was accurate, right?
I did, yes.
Can we please pull up the chart that's in his expert report? Your Honor, this is, or Mr. Spindler, I'd like you to take a look at this and confirm for the court that this is the chart that's in your expert report, if you would.
It appears to be, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish this just as a demonstrative.
Any
No
objection?
objection.
All right.
So, Mr. Spindler, this chart shows Mr. Depp's earnings by year based on the information that you received from Ed White, correct?
Correct.
From 2009 to 2020.
Yes.
And it shows that from about 2009 to 2019, and I didn't add these up visually, but from your report, you say that Mr. Depp made about $459 million. Correct?
Correct.
Now, the two highest earning years in this time period were 2010 and 2011, right?
Yes.
You see that? You made about $70 million in 2010.
I do.
And
Yes.
then the third highest year was 2014, right?
Yes.
Shade under 60 million. And you'd agree that from the period 2010 to 2020, his annual income on average was decreasing.
Yes, but you have to take a look at the components of this.
Right.
And
And in
as
2000, I was just wanted to get your agreement that from 2010 to 2020, his annual income was decreasing. Now, in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2016, correct?
On an overall basis, yes.
And in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2018, correct?
Yes, just
After the
based on
op-ed.
earnings.
And in 2018 and 2019, he earned an almost identical amount, correct?
Yes,
And
just based on
2019 and
earnings.
2020 were both after the publication date of the op-ed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now I want to talk about some of these non-franchise earnings because when I looked at your chart that was displayed to the jury, I didn't see anything specific listed. So can you just confirm for me that you can't name a single lost business opportunity other than Pirate 6 that Mr. Depp lost as a result of the op-ed?
That's correct. That's
And
not the
you can't
nature of this
identify
calculation.
a single television, if you could just answer my questions yes or no as best you can, please. You can't identify a single television project that Mr. Depp allegedly lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct. That's not the
And
nature
you
of this.
can't identify a single advertising campaign or marketing opportunity that Mr. Depp lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Right. These are the
And
calls
so
that he
it's
did not
fair to
receive.
say that for the lost opportunities that you can't name, you're assuming, as with Pirate 6, that those opportunities were lost because of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned something interesting in your direct and in your report. You say that you used 2017 as the base year to calculate what you claim Mr. Depp's should have earned in 2019 and 20, correct?
Correct.
And let's take a look at this because 2017 he made that much, correct? About 45 million or so?
Yes.
But in 2016 he made just a shade over 20, correct?
Correct.
2018 he made a shade under 20, right?
Yes.
Same with 2019, right?
Correct.
And then 2020, he actually made more than he had in the prior 2 years or in 2016 and made about, 22, 23 million or so? Is that right?
Right. But as I indicated, this
So-
is just based on earnings. You need to get behind it.
Right. So you said, there were a couple interesting things you said. You said that the most recent, that 2017, I want to explore why you relied on that. Now, first of all, you said that you relied on Jack Wiggum's testimony that 2017 was a reasonable year to use, correct?
Correct.
Despite the fact that 2017, he made more than twice as much as he's made in any year over the last 5 years, correct?
Yes,
And you
but when
say
you
that
take a
this-
look
you said that
at
the most
their,
recent-
if I can
No.
finish
You
this
answer
thought.
my question. No. Well, I want to get to your thoughts because you said that one of the reasons you used 2017 was because it was you said, I wrote it down, the most recent clean year, right?
Correct.
And then I think you explained, you said because the op-ed was written in 2018, right?
Correct.
But the op-ed wasn't written until December 18th, 2018, correct?
Yes.
So the first, if 2017 was clean, then the first 352 days of 2018 were also clean, weren't they, sir?
If I may explain, Mr. Wiggum testified that for the first half of 2018, Mr. Depp chose to take some vacation time. Also, he chose to go touring in the summer with his band, and then he did a film towards the end of 2018. With the publication of the op-ed in December of 2018, that would have impacted the prospects for that film that was done in 2018. So he chose to do just the one film in 2018. And then the impact of the op-ed on that film would have meant that it was not a clean period. You could not have looked at that film to get a good sense of what his earnings should have been because he didn't have the chance to earn box office bonuses or
Okay,
profit participations.
Well,
So that's why 2017 is a much, much better year to use than 2018.
Well,
And
let's
also when
break
you
that.
take a
Let's
look
break
at the
that down.
bar for-
I think let's break that down a little bit. You said that 2017 was a much cleaner year, but isn't it also true that there were other reasons why 2018 wasn't clean? For example, the April 2018 article by Dan Wooten calling Mr. Depp a wife beater, correct?
That did occur in that year, yes.
The June 2018 lawsuit that Mr. Depp filed in the UK against the Sun for calling him a wife beater, correct?
Yes.
And how about the October articles reporting that Disney had decided to move on from Mr. Depp and not cast him in Pirates 6, correct?
I'm sorry, what effect would that have had?
Well, it came before the op-ed, so it's another reason why 2018 isn't a clean year in your mind, correct? An article
No,
2
those
months
aren't the
before the
reasons
op-ed,
why-
an article
those-
2 months before the op-ed saying that Disney had decided not to cast Mr. Depp. That would also keep 2018 from being what you would call a clean year, correct?
I've described the reasons why I believe 2018 was not a clean year.
Okay. Now, you're aware, as we talked about, that Amber's op-ed wasn't published till December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
So Mr. Depp could not have lost out on any opportunities as a result of the op-ed prior to December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2017 as a result of the op-ed. Fair?
Fair.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2016 as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And so in calculating your damages, you didn't use 2016, you didn't use 2018, but you chose to use 2017, correct?
Yes, for
And
very
Mr.
good
Depp
reasons.
still made more in 2020 than he did in both 2016 and 2018 before the op-ed was published, correct?
Correct, and that's
Nothing
just
further.
based
Thank
on
you, sir.
earnings.
All right, redirect.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. You explained 2018. Why didn't you use 2016?
Well, first of all, 2017 was a more recent year. 2017 was a year in which Mr. Wiggum indicated that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. He had a studio film, he had an independent film, he had an endorsement deal. 2016 is further back in time. As I understand it, his earnings capacity for that year would have been just about the same or even higher than 2017, because there was an endorsement deal that Mr. Depp passed on that would have been worth a lot of money, according to Ms. Jacobs. So 2017 made the most sense.
Why did you ultimately use the method that you did to determine the lost earnings?
Because it just makes sense. It's the correct approach to take. You're taking a look at what Mr. Depp would have been expected to earn in a typical year, and then you're comparing that to the period of time where you're analyzing following the op-ed from December of 2018 through October of 2020. So you're taking a look at what you would have expected him to earn. It's very simple compared to what he actually did earn.
No further questions, Your
All right, thank you. Is this witness subject to recall? All right. Sir, since you're subject to recall, do not discuss your testimony with anybody, but since you are giving expert testimony, you're free to stay into the courtroom, okay, sir? Thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Watch your step.